The story you are about to hear is not just another tale. It is a warning, a cry for parents to open their eyes before it is too late. Parents, please watch this before it's too late. #storytime, #folktale. In the small town of Otukpo, Benue State, there lived a man named Otukpo. He was respected, a trader who everyone believed was kind and generous. His wife, Cecilia, was a quiet woman who took care of their home and their 2 children, Silas and Philo. They lived in a compound not far from the market, surrounded by people who trusted them completely. But behind the walls of their neatly painted house, a dark secret began to grow. It started the day a 13-year-old girl named Ochanya came from the village to live with them. Her parents had sent her because the only school in their village had been shut down. She was shy, small, and always grateful. She would greet everyone with a soft smile and help around the house without being told. Otukpo promised her parents that she would be treated like his own daughter. But little did anyone know, danger was already waiting inside the house. The most shocking part of the story came one late evening. Cecilia had gone to the market, and Philo had returned home early from choir practice. As she walked past her brother's room, she heard strange noises. She stopped, confused. The door wasn't locked, and when she pushed it slightly open, what she saw made her freeze in horror. Her brother, Silas, was on top of Ochanya, covering her mouth to keep her quiet. Okanya's eyes were wide with fear, tears streaming down her face. Philo gasped, dropped her school bag, and ran to the sitting room, shouting for her mother. But Cecilia was not home. Silas rushed after her, panic written all over his face. "Please, don't tell Mama. I swear it won't happen again," he begged. But Philo couldn't keep quiet. When their parents came home that night, she told them everything. Cecilia cried. She slapped Silas and called him names. Otukpo sat quietly for a while, then sighed deeply and said, "He's a boy. Boys make mistakes." Cecilia didn't agree, but Otukpo warned everyone to keep it in the family. "We can't let outsiders know. It will bring shame," he said. So Silas was scolded, but no real punishment followed. Ochanya was told to forgive and forget, but inside her the fear never left. Weeks later, something even darker began to happen. Otukpo, the father who was meant to protect her, started calling Ochanya to his room at night. He would say he wanted to talk, that he cared for her like his daughter. But each visit ended in pain and confusion for the little girl. She didn't understand why the man she called uncle would touch her the same way Silas did. Parents, before we continue, please tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, because what happened next is something no child should ever go through. Now, let's go back to how it all began. When Ochanya first arrived from her village in Ogbedibo, life felt new and full of hope. She had never seen so many cars or lights before. Cecilia welcomed her warmly, gave her new clothes, and promised she would go to school soon. Ochanya was excited. She woke up early every morning, swept the compound, and helped Philo with chores. Philo liked her immediately and taught her how to write her name properly. Silas, however, was different. He was 17, tall, and always acting like he knew everything. He would tease Ochanya, sometimes snatch her school books, and make jokes that made her uncomfortable. Cecilia often told him to stop, but he never listened. One afternoon, Cecilia traveled to her mother's place in Gboko for a burial. Otukpo was home with the children. Silas had just come back from school, and Philo had gone for choir practice. Ochanya was in the kitchen washing plates when Silas came in quietly. He asked her to help him look for his phone in his room. She hesitated but followed him. That was the first time he hurt her. She didn't tell anyone. She was scared. Scared that Cecilia would send her back to the village and her dreams of education would die. Scared that Otukpo would not believe her. But that silence became her prison. Days turned into weeks. Silas pretended nothing happened. He laughed and played, while Ochanya avoided him as much as she could. Philo noticed the change. The once cheerful girl became quiet, withdrawn, and easily frightened. The night Philo caught them was the night everything began to fall apart. But no one outside the house knew. Neighbors still saw Otukpo as the kind man who took in his niece to help her go to school. They didn't know that inside, the child was dying slowly, not from hunger or poverty, but from betrayal. The more Otukpo pretended to correct Silas, the more his own mind grew darker. At first, he would sit by Ochanya during dinner and ask if she was fine. Then, he began to touch her shoulder too long. He began to visit her room late at night. When Cecilia went to the market in the evenings, he would call her softly, "Ochanya, come and help me with something." Each time she obeyed, something terrible happened. Weeks later, Ochanya started falling sick. She had fever, stomach pain, and found it difficult to urinate. Cecilia thought it was malaria. They bought medicine from the chemist, but the pain grew worse. She began to walk slowly, crying each night from the burning pain in her body. Still, she didn't speak. Then one night, Otukpo came again. This time, she tried to run, but her body was weak. He forced himself on her as she cried silently. He whispered, "Don't tell anyone, or you'll go back to the village." That night, Philo woke up and heard faint cries coming from the sitting room. She sat up, heart pounding. She walked quietly toward the sound, and what she saw next made her blood run cold. She froze, unable to breathe, unable to move. That was the night everything changed. Philo's heart thumped so loudly she thought the whole house could hear it. She wanted to scream, to run, to wake her mother, but her voice refused to come out. She stood there, frozen, staring at what no child should ever see. Her father, Otukpo, was on top of Ochanya. The little girl's cries were muffled under his heavy body. Philo's hands shook so badly that the tray she was holding slipped and clattered to the floor. Otukpo jerked up, eyes wide. For a moment, silence filled the room. Only Okanya's soft sobs broke it. Philo turned and ran, her bare feet slapping the cold tiles as she dashed into her room. She locked the door and pressed her back against it, tears streaming down her face. Her world had just shattered. The man she called father, the man she respected more than anyone, had done something unspeakable. That night, Philo did not sleep. She lay in bed trembling, whispering prayers she could barely remember. She wanted to tell her mother, but a voice inside her kept saying, "Who will believe you? He's your father." By morning, she had made up her mind. She would tell Cecilia no matter what happened. But when she tried to speak at breakfast, Otukpo's cold stare stopped her. He acted as if nothing happened, eating calmly and asking if everyone had slept well. Ochanya sat quietly, her eyes swollen, her lips trembling. Later that day, Cecilia called Philo to help her wash clothes behind the house. Philo opened her mouth to talk, but Otukpo appeared again, pretending to check on them. His eyes met Philo's, warning her to keep quiet. That was when she knew he would hurt her too if she spoke. Okanya's health began to worsen. She no longer smiled or sang when sweeping the compound. Her once bright eyes turned dull. Cecilia noticed and asked if she was feeling ill. "I'm fine, Auntie," Ochanya would whisper, forcing a smile. But she was not fine. The pain in her lower stomach kept growing worse. At night, she cried silently, holding her stomach and praying for the pain to go away. Days passed, and Cecilia decided to take her to the chemist again. "Maybe it's typhoid," she said. The chemist gave her some tablets, but after a few days, her condition worsened. She could barely walk straight, and her urine had a foul smell. Cecilia began to worry. She didn't know the true reason her niece was suffering. If she had known, she might have done something. But Otukpo kept assuring her that it was nothing serious. "She will be fine," he would say. "Maybe she just needs rest." Philo's silence became her burden. Every time she looked at Ochanya, guilt tore through her. She wanted to help, but fear kept her trapped. Sometimes, she would sneak into Okanya's room and whisper, "I'm sorry." Ochanya would smile weakly and say, "It's not your fault." One Sunday morning, Cecilia asked everyone to get ready for church. Ochanya said she was too weak to go, so Cecilia told her to rest at home. Philo stayed behind with her. After everyone left, Philo sat beside her on the bed. "Tell me the truth," she said softly. Did Daddy hurt you? Okanya's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she nodded slowly. Philo's heart broke. She held her hand tightly, trying to stop her tears. I saw him that night, Philo whispered. I'm so sorry, Ochanya. I didn't know what to do. Ochanya looked at her weakly. Don't tell anyone, she said. He said he will send me back to the village if I talk. Philo shook her head. He can't keep doing this. I'll find a way. I promise. But promises are sometimes hard to keep. That evening, after church, Otukpo called Philo to his room. What did you and Ochanya talk about today? He asked. Philo's stomach turned cold. Nothing, sir, she replied quickly. His eyes studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. Good, he said. Because if I find out you've been saying nonsense, I'll make sure you regret it. Philo ran to her room and cried silently. She hated him. She hated the man she once called her hero. Cecilia noticed the tension but didn't understand it. Why is everyone acting strange these days? She muttered. No one talks anymore. 2 weeks later, Okanya's condition became critical. She fainted in the kitchen one afternoon. Philo screamed for help, and Cecilia rushed in. They poured water on her and tried to wake her up. When she finally opened her eyes, she was weak and pale. Cecilia decided to take her to the hospital in Makurdi the next morning. That night, Cecilia sat in her room, worried. Otukpo entered quietly and said, You worry too much. She'll be fine. But for the first time, Cecilia didn't believe him. There was something in his calmness that made her uneasy. Meanwhile, Philo stayed awake beside Ochanya, holding her hand. You'll be okay, she whispered. Tomorrow we'll go to the hospital. Ochanya smiled faintly. Thank you, Philo. Just as Philo was about to drift to sleep, she heard footsteps in the corridor. Her heart started racing. The door creaked open slowly. A shadow fell across the room. It was him. Otukpo stepped inside quietly, his face hidden in the darkness. Philo's eyes widened as she realized what was about to happen again. She froze, her body trembling. Okanya's weak voice whispered, Please, don't. And then, everything went silent. The night felt endless. Philo lay still on her bed, pretending to sleep, while her heart pounded against her ribs. She heard her father's footsteps grow closer to Okanya's bed, followed by the sound of her muffled crying. Every instinct in Philo's body screamed at her to do something, but fear chained her down. The moment she moved, Otukpo's deep voice thundered, Go back to sleep, Philo. Her body went cold. He knew she was awake. When it was finally quiet, she cried into her pillow until dawn. By morning, she was drained. Ochanya looked even weaker. She could barely stand, and her eyes had lost every trace of life. Cecilia prepared to take her to the hospital in Makurdi that day. She didn't know the truth. She just wanted her niece to get better. At the hospital, the nurse checked Ochanya and asked questions. How long has she been sick? Cecilia explained everything she knew. The fever, the pain, the urine problem. The nurse nodded, her face turning serious. We'll need to run some tests, she said. They waited for hours before a young doctor came with the results. He looked at Cecilia and sighed. Madam, your girl has severe infections. It looks like she's been abused. Cecilia's face changed. Abused? What do you mean? The doctor hesitated. I mean, she has injuries that are not normal for a child her age. The words struck her like a thunderbolt. That's not possible. She's just a child, she shouted, her voice shaking. The doctor lowered his eyes. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's what the results show. Cecilia stared at Ochanya, who was lying weakly on the bed. The child avoided her eyes. Ochanya, she said softly. Who did this to you? But Ochanya just turned her face to the wall and wept silently. That evening, when they returned home, silence filled the compound. Cecilia didn't speak to anyone. She kept watching her husband and her son, noticing things she had ignored before. The way Otukpo avoided her gaze, the way Silas froze when she entered the room. Philo wanted to speak, but she was terrified. She feared her father's anger. That night, while everyone slept, Cecilia sat alone in the sitting room. She replayed the doctor's words over and over in her mind. She's been abused. The thought made her heart race. She decided she would talk to Ochanya again in the morning. But that morning, another storm began to brew. Silas came home early from school, his face pale. "Mama," he said, trembling. "Some people are saying you took Ochanya to the hospital. What happened?" Cecilia looked at him carefully. "Why does that bother you?" she asked. "Did you do something I should know about?" Silas froze. His lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal. That was all the answer she needed. "Silas," she shouted, "tell me the truth." Before he could speak, Otukpo entered, his face dark. "Cecilia, enough," he barked. "Don't question my son like that." Cecilia turned to him, her voice trembling with rage. "Enough? The doctor said she was abused. How can you defend him when a child is suffering in this house?" Otukpo's expression hardened. "Lower your voice. You don't know what you're saying." But Cecilia wasn't backing down this time. "I know exactly what I'm saying," she shouted. "Something terrible happened to that girl, and I will find out who did it." Otukpo's jaw tightened. He took a step toward her. "You will not bring shame to this family," he said coldly. "Do you hear me?" Philo and Silas stood in the hallway, frozen in fear. The tension in the house was heavy like smoke. Later that night, Philo went to Ochanya's room and sat beside her. "They're fighting because of me?" Ochanya whispered weakly. Philo shook her head. "No, they're fighting because of what they did." Philo held her hand tightly. "You need to tell Mama the truth. Please, she deserves to know." Ochanya looked at her, eyes filled with tears. "If I talk, he'll kill me." "He won't," Philo promised, though she wasn't sure. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Otukpo's shadow filled the doorway. "What are you girls talking about?" he asked quietly, his tone calm but dangerous. Philo quickly stood up, trembling. "Nothing, Daddy. We were just praying." He stared at them for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Good girls," he said. "Always pray." He turned and left, but the girls knew that smile hid something cruel. The next day, Ochanya's condition worsened. She could barely eat, and her body burned with fever. Cecilia decided to take her back to the hospital for admission, but Otukpo refused. "It's a waste of money," he said firmly. "She'll be fine. Just give her herbs." That was the last straw for Cecilia. "You have changed, Otukpo," she said, tears filling her eyes. "This is not the man I married." But Otukpo didn't respond. He picked up his keys and left the house without another word. That evening, as rain began to fall heavily on the zinc roof, Ochanya's breathing grew shallow. Philo held her hand, whispering, "You'll be okay, I promise." Ochanya opened her eyes slightly. "Philo," she whispered, "tell my mother I'm sorry I didn't finish school." Philo's tears fell. "Don't talk like that. You're not going anywhere." But as lightning flashed outside, Ochanya's eyes slowly closed again. Philo panicked and screamed for her mother. Cecilia rushed in, shouting her name and shaking her gently. But Ochanya didn't respond. "Otukpo, come quick," Cecilia cried, her voice breaking. He rushed in, pretending to be shocked. "What happened?" "She's not breathing," Cecilia shouted. "She's not breathing." The rain outside grew louder, thunder rumbling through the air. And in that moment, something unthinkable happened. Something that would shake the entire town of Otukpo to its core. Continuation dropping soon. Thanks for watching. Please let us know where you're watching from and share your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like the channel and share this video. Thanks.